everyone. Welcome to Uila's Lightning Chat sessions. I'm Dilip Advani, and joining me today is Brandon Morris, who's the lead systems administrator for the City of Sioux Falls. And today he will be talking about his organization's monitoring practices for the infrastructure and the applications running on it. Welcome, Brandon.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here and always interested to talk about products that we like and enjoy to use.
Cool. Thank you. So, Brandon, can you tell us more about the IT organization at the City of Sioux Falls and the group you work for within the organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are centralized, so we're part of a innovation and technology group. With the information technology, we're a little bit over 24 people that are in our IT department that serve all the different various areas of the city, which is almost like working for a dozen different companies, because what we have going on in the libraries is very, very different than what we're doing for public safety or for the streets or anything like that. So we've got a pretty wide berth of things that we do. Inside of our technology department, we do have kind of three different teams. We've got our technicians that are kind of fielding and manning all the front lines, dealing with end devices and being that first contact point for anything that's going on. We have a group of analysts who kind of focus in on those individual departments and their departmental needs, as well as they kind of become the application level specialists for those applications used by those departments. And then the team that I am sitting on is our enterprise services group. And we are kind of looking at everything. So if you kind of scope that from, here's one device, here's one person, to here's a department, and here's everything. In our particular environment, we are dealing with the enterprise as a whole. So we have most of our system admins, network admins, the security teams, all that stuff are on my side of the fence. And we are kind of supporting all the infrastructure and everything that the rest of the city is working on.
Okay, yeah, that's great to know. So can you tell us more about these business critical applications that's used, and then who those customers are for those applications? Obviously, because this is for the city, I'm assuming there's a lot of permit stuff, there's taxes stuff, there's obviously your website and stuff like that. Can you tell us more about some of those critical applications?
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, we do have a lot of different areas that are touched at. Probably nearest and dearest to our heart as far as keeping applications up and running is public safety. So the computer-aided dispatch systems that allow police, fire, and the ambulance services to be able to get quickly and efficiently to somebody in need. That's probably what I would say is the most critical that stays up and going. But past that, kind of the largest kind of sets of systems that work both internally and externally are everything that we do with land management. So be that the geographical information of actually plotting and understanding where all the land is and what it's all used for and where the things are in those relationships. But then that also ties very heavily into where we do the permitting, we do the compliance, we do any of those kinds of pieces. So as contractors are coming in and out, they're interacting with those systems, or even if we're looking to replace out or maintain lights in the city or anything, those all get managed through those as well. And so that's probably the biggest, largest, broadest kind of set of things that we're touching, because as a city, ultimately, our goal is our purpose is to manage all the land within the city and how that's used, maintained, and taken care of.
Okay. And so what are the challenges you typically face with these type of applications? And then if there is an outage or if there is a slowdown, what's the big impact?
One of the challenges that we face as we're running through is we have so many different applications on so many different servers and platforms. And that land management software that I just talked about was 18 different discrete servers. And some of them are interacting within each other's as service helper applications. Some of them are interacting with the city employees. Some of them are interacting with other systems of the city. And then we have systems that are interacting and otherwise working out with the public. So it can be difficult for us to really understand and piece together how those can go. One specific example, and this will go back several years before we had Uila or anything that we're looking at, is we had a enterprise resource planning system. And in this system, we deployed out a new version of the software. and they were looking at buying an all-flash array to try to boost up the performance at the time. And what it ultimately ended up being is that there was one little button that was either approve or reject for a submission. And because of a little piece of poor coding, it was reading an entire database table to go find that one row that it was looking for. And we were looking at, load times of close to a minute for some of these pages. And it was very, very difficult for us to try to pin down what was going on in that application to, fix it and make that going. So that was an application that for purchases and requisitions or anything else that was kind of working for that internal workflow that made everything really, really slow for everybody. So that was definitely impactful.
Okay. Okay. So obviously you mentioned about the challenges you faced in the past, right? So what is your approach now towards solving these problems now that you have the Uila solution in-house? Like, what's the approach you take? What does the team do? How do you guys interact with each other in terms of using the Uila solution?
Yeah. So, in comparison to that, manual dig, manual play, manual go through everything before we ultimately found out that there was one line of bad SQL code that was causing such a horrible performance piece. Now when we look at having some kind of, problem that's going on, we have in our data center kind of like a knock wall. And so I've got 6 different TVs loading different little pieces of software that are constantly feeding us back information. But 2 of those monitors are dedicated to running Uila so that we can see, I can just glance up, see that all of our circles are where I expect them to be, and know that we don't have anything kind of going out of whack in the environment as a whole. One of the other sides we're looking at is watching for kind of any abnormalities on the security side as far as egress traffic or things like that are going through. But now, when we have something that's going on, my go-to solution is to just simply load up and say, okay, so you're having these problems and they happen about when, and we can just, find the relative servers, we can zoom in, we can grab at the windows, and we can look at, what do we observe as an application response, and then where can we see. And, we have an issue that we're looking at with that land management software where, what it ended up really being is that they were going out and they were making some checks against some third-party certificate servers, and all of the delays that were coming through the software were due to that third-party interaction that was just simply dragging all the rest of the system down. And I don't know that without something tracing out all these conversations, that would have been a very obvious solution to what was going on, because everything looked fine on the servers because there wasn't anything wrong with our servers. But we were able to trace back all those conversation flows and identify a problem that didn't even exist in our environment that was dragging us down.
Absolutely. That's great to know. So last question as such, right? So what do you think in terms of the reduction of the effort or the time or the cost, right, that Uila has brought to helping you resolve some of these challenges as compared to what you did in the past, right? Can you tell us more about it, like how much it's helped and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think that the largest just simple change is that when we want to go take a look at something, I can just simply ask your software, give it a time, give it an application, give it something like that, and it will start pointing you in the right direction as for what is going on. So if we have an application web server that's responding very poorly, we can see that correlative traffic between user hits web page hits database server returns the web page, returns back. We can, instead of looking right away at the web server, it might be able to point out that we have a very obvious delay running out on the SQL side. So maybe take a look at expensive queries or something like that over there. So it, instead of kind of coming in and taking just an educated guess and taking a look out into what's going on, we can really get a, if we're looking at, this whole entire environment, we can get a, like, go look here. This is probably what we have going on. or in the event, I've seen sometimes where we saw multiple compounding kind of issues, and we could say, hey, we saw both of these things as areas that were really dragging down that response. And so it's been useful to be able to just really narrow down. So instead of taking just a guess and looking for what's going on, it gives us a pretty good place to start off. And that definitely gives us a head start and a lot of time to be able to look at that. The other thing that we're using out of the software that really has kind of helped a little bit is that we have some sizing reporting and other things. So we can look at over and under provisioned VMs by just simply watching how they're performing over time versus what resources they have and what resources that they're consuming to be able to come back. And I don't take, to be honest, I don't take those as just, yep, that's what Uila said, so let's go ahead and implement them. We take that as just simply, here's the, most over provisioned or most under provisioned servers. And we can just take a look at, a handful of those at a time that are kind of on the most extremes and say, you got an application server that idles all day. Why exactly are we dedicating 8 virtual CPUs to you when 2 might be a much more reasonable deal? And it seems counterproductive, but right sizing those VMs by cutting those resources back actually makes them perform better, because we're not waiting to ready up 8 CPUs to be able to execute a task. We can just ready 2 and be able to get them off on their feet a lot quicker. So I think that it's helping us more efficiently use our environment overall, as well as simply giving us a little bit of an idea of, even what's going on, or, how that's trending, or what we need to be taking a look at for what's going on. So it's definitely helped us.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think you got that absolutely right. We're hearing this from many other users as well, right? The right sizing, especially in the over provisioning side, in this day and age of like tight budgets, right, is super critical. That's being used by many organizations. So, yeah.
Yeah. So if I can, cut, especially on like the memory side of things, because it usually tends to be what in our environment is memory is that first resource that runs out on the compute side of the platforms. And so if I can say, hey, you've got a SQL server, we've given you 48 gigs. In Windows, it says, because it's SQL Server, that it's using all 48 gigs of that memory. But based on the last 90 days of watching transactions on this thing, it clearly isn't actually using that space. We can trim some of that fat back. Your application's still going to end up performing the same, and that allows us to be able to get a little bit denser on what we're running on our side of the fence.
Sure. Yeah, Brandon, this has been very helpful, and I'm sure it's pretty insightful for everyone listening to this. So I wanted to thank you for your time today, and for you and your family to stay safe.
All right. Thank you, and you and yours as well.
Cool. Thank you very much.
All right.